Welcome to Productive Joy with Dr. Christy, where fun meets action.
Hi, friends. Welcome to Productive Joy. Again and again, I am having the opportunity to meet some unbelievably fascinating people, and today is without a doubt no exception. But before we jump in with Lindsey, I want to just make sure you're following this podcast. Because if you're not, then you're not going to get automatic messages that say, hey, there's a new episode, and you're going to miss amazing people like Lindsey. And I don't want that to be the case. So please follow, share it with your friends, because this is your free shot of B12 that's going to hopefully change things for you. So today we have an amazing leader with us. Her name is Lindsey Ferrell. Lindsey, it comes to us as a teacher, also turned entrepreneur. She is proficient in sign language, which is a really cool story. She's a sister. She's a survivor. She's a believer, a Jesus believer specifically. She's a mama. She's a wifey. She's a CEO. She's an interpreter. And as a Jesus lover, she's really willing to give of her time. So Lindsey, welcome to Productive Joy.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm really glad to have you. And so you and I met because my assistant, who is a brilliant and wonderful woman, has been following you for a long time. She's the mom of 3 littles, which would explain why she knows you in your world, because my kids are 23. So unfortunately, I did not have the privilege of getting to be in your space. So for those that are listening, why don't you tell them just a little bit about how this relationship between you and me came to be? In other words, what is it that you do that Bailey knew about?
Okay. So Bailey is a part of our community and we call it the cutie community. And that basically started on Instagram with Ryan and Rose, our business. So we started as a baby brand and have kind of changed into a family brand. We like to say making families' lives easier at every stage of life. But with this, God gave us this business, but he also gave us this community of moms and parents. And there's actually a group on Facebook called the Cutie Community, and it was basically a safe place where moms could go and, meet new friends or ask questions or just get prayer or love and support. And not only on Facebook in the Cutie Community, but also on Instagram. So
That is so cool. So you literally, now this didn't exist 15 years ago, right? And you
correct.
weren't a mom yet. And you have a pretty cool story that we may or may not get into on how you got to this part of your journey. But you recognized that doing it by yourself was scary. And you didn't want to do it by yourself. And from what I understand, there were some products that didn't exist that you were like, hold on, I can't be a mom successfully without this thing. What was the impetus for that?
So it started with the cutie clip, and I kind of tell the story of Ryan Rose, who the business is named after, my oldest, was taking a pacifier, but our dog Penny, who's right here below me, she's 13. She would eat the nipples off all of Ryan's pacifiers. And so I was like, okay, I guess I need a clip. But everything was really long and unsafe and just seemed like a choking hazard. So I just felt like the Lord one day was like, well, make your own. It's very crafty, I guess you could say. And so we kind of shortened it. We were the first to kind of make a short pacifier clip, and which is cool a story and how that worked, because now like the CPSC has changed their guidelines. But I guess we were the first to be like, why are they long? Why are they unsafe? And so it started with the cutie clip. And then when I had my second daughter, Charlie, she wouldn't take a pacifier. And so I was trying to have the idea. I was like, why don't I make like a small teether that looks like a pacifier? And then it kind of morphed into a pacifier and teether. And that gave us the cutie pat, which kind of took us to next level. And so it's kind of cool to see where God has used us and different products to help us grow. And this is not something like I never really wanted a business. Like I was an interpreter and then a teacher for the deaf. And I just thought I would be doing that until I retired. So just showing that sometimes God has different plans for you and bigger plans that you could ever think or imagine.
Yeah, I've heard the phrase that we plan and God laughs, right? Like he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, no, no, no. Let
Yeah.
me show you what I really want you to do."
Yes.
So cool that one. So I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Robots, but years ago, the movie Robots, in it, Rodney Copperbottom was a robot who saw a need and filled a need. It was
Mhm.
his job to fix the things that had a hole.
Right.
And that to me is exactly what you did. You saw a need. Your daughter
Mhm.
needed to have this pacifier without Penny, the dog.
Yeah.
It. And you said, you know what? I can create that, but I bet I'm not the only one who has it. And you have since built, I love the term community. not just because we call them Facebook communities, but you've built a community of humans who are
Mhm.
all in that same stage of life together, doing things to make change. That's to me the definition of a perfect leader. Somebody who says, you know what, I have this problem. Does anybody else have this problem? Okay, let's go through this stage of life together. And then,
Yeah.
from what I understand, you've kind of morphed into your children are a little older now. So the things that you provide are a little older now. And you recognize not that you don't still serve the littles, but you're
Right.
also recognizing that Charlie and Ryan have different needs now than they did when they were really little, right?
Right, exactly. We recently launched the cutie dose, and it was something that I'd wanted to make for so long, but it's like a syringe that fits into all different medicine bottles. Like when you're in the middle of the night, your kid is sick, and the syringes that they have like won't fit inside the bottles or won't reach the bottom. So we solved that problem, and we created me and my husband together, like cut, had created a new version that is skinny, fits in the bottles, fits goes to the bottom. And so, like, I think that's just how God made me. I just try to solve problems, and that's kind of what we've been doing with that. Or the cutie handle, that's a water bottle holder, like that was for my kids. Jesus bracelets were for my kids to share Jesus with others. So it's, yeah, solving those problems. It's just super cool.
Well, that's the definition of a great leader, right? Is somebody who doesn't just say, oh, well, that's a problem, but okay, that's a problem. Now, how do we solve it? How do we solve it together? I love that you and your husband do that
Mm.
together and that you're involving the kids too and saying, hey, what is it that you can help us do to make some really great things? And if you haven't been to her website yet, and we'll talk about all of that too, you see the pictures of the kids serving in this space. It's pretty awesome. But you didn't just you weren't born into this. You have had some things that have led you to this point. And I know you skimmed over the fact that you were a teacher for the deaf. How did that come to be? Like, did you always know you wanted to work with students with special needs, or were there things that kind of pushed you into that path?
So I had a friend growing up, and her mom was hard of hearing. And so I remember when we were younger, probably elementary school, we would go. She grew up oral, and she would go. She was learning sign language, so I would go to class with them. So that kind of was like planted a seed at an early age. And then when I was in high school, one of our pastors was a coda, which is a child of a deaf adult, and so his parents were deaf. And so he would sometimes teach us songs. And so I think I did a pageant one time, and he taught me a song, and we would interpret different music at church. And that's kind of where it started. And then my senior year of high school, me and my mom actually took classes at the local interpreting service. And so after that, it was kind of, oh my gosh, I could do this in college. And so I went to University of Arkansas at Little Rock and got my bachelor's in American Sign Language. So that's kind of where that came about.
And I'm going to guess that opened some doors and it gave you some opportunities. What was the most exciting thing you ever got to interpret?
Oh my goodness. I'm trying to think.
Oh, there
I
has to
had
be a good
some
story.
Yeah, I have some crazy I used to work for Sorenson, which is a relay service, and I've had some crazy, crazy calls, from sex calls to like 911 calls. I have some stories, but probably no.
Well, you get to determine what's appropriate, but that's the kind of stuff
Yes.
I'm envisioning. Like the most
Yeah.
hilarious one I've seen that's going around right now is the woman who was at a concert and had to interpret Baby Got Back.
Oh yes, she's good.
She is good. And right,
Yeah.
but that's the kind of what you think about. You don't realize that you have to put so much of who you are into that interpretation for them to understand the context behind what you're saying. Otherwise, it is just motions, right? Like you are speaking to them and that requires a whole lot of your personality. How cool. So you did that for a while as an
Yeah.
educator, right?
Did it as well. Started out as an interpreter, and then at the same time, I was working part. I had two jobs, working part time as a relay interpreter, and so I would go do education, school, high school in the morning, interpret at high school, and then at night I would go interpret at Sorenson. And then later, because it didn't really pay very well, I went
Sure.
back to school and got my master's in depth ed, and then became a teacher. So that was kind of where that transition happened, but. Yeah, at Sorenson, I had some crazy, crazy good calls and sad call. It was exhausting. It was a lot of hard work. A
Yeah.
lot of hard work.
I'm gonna guess. And so while you were doing that, you went back to school and then you decided to teach. So you're in a classroom setting. Was it a school for the deaf? Was it that you were with one student? How did that work?
So even when I was interpreting, I worked at White Station High School, which is one of the largest mainstream schools in the state. Well, actually, the whole country. Back then, uh, we could have anywhere from, you know, 30 to 60 deaf kids at the school in the high school. They would be bussed in from all over the city. And so I did co teaching, which I would go into a regular ed classroom and they would have two teachers. So you would have a regular teacher, me, a teacher for the deaf, and an interpreter, and hearing kids and deaf kids. And so we did that. And, I was teaching, seven different classes. So it was a lot of work too. But that was probably the hardest thing when I quit, to be like, "Are you sure, God? Like, you really want me to stop doing this?" Because, those kids have been my babies for so long, and I'd poured so much of my heart and time and fighting for them and, being in that environment that it was hard to leave.
Sure, I'm sure it was. But you were called elsewhere to go and start this business that is changing lives literally all over the country, all over the world. Are you international yet?
Oh, yes, we
Oh,
ship everywhere.
so cool. And so it started out in your house, you and your husband packing boxes, and then it grew. And I'm digging into all of this because everybody's leadership story looks different. And part of productive joy for me is understanding that it doesn't matter where you start, it's where you end up and how you get there that allows us to learn from others instead of having to make all of our own mistakes. So here you have this new business, but you didn't think it was going to be a business. You're still teaching, you're packing boxes, you're never sleeping, and off you go. At what point did you know, okay, it is time for me to pump the brakes on one or the other, or I'm going to break? And you decided to go all in with this business.
Yes, that was 2016, and I think my heart when I would go to school, like, it just wasn't there.
Mhm.
I was probably exhausted because I would stay up and ship and engrave, and so basically, doing both for, I think, 4 years, and so I think it got to me, but also I think Lord was leading me away in the Holy Spirit saying, like, when I go to school, like, I didn't enjoy it anymore. Like, that joy that I used to have wasn't there. And there actually is a moment when I had a kid cuss me out and I was like, "I'm done."
Mhm. Mhm.
I think that week somebody keyed my car. I was just like, "All right, God, I see you. I see. Okay, I'm done. I'm out." But what's crazy is I finally decided to quit and to put my notice in. And I think I left in the middle of the year. So I left like after Christmas break. And then I found out I was pregnant. And I was just like, "God, really? Like now?" I just, like, but he knew. He knew the whole time. But
He
I think just,
certainly did.
yes.
And you listened, and that's what's really cool. And so the name of the podcast is Productive Joy. And my favorite question to ask is I ask every guest, how would you describe productive joy? You've mentioned joy. You've also mentioned some productivity, but what to you is productive joy?
Oh my goodness. I think finding that balance in life. So I would say productive joy for me, I think you first have to define joy. What is joy? And I think for me, where joy comes from is from the Lord. And I think when I think of joy, I think of like what makes me happy and things like that. But I think for that question, I would say where I have been able to find that joy is balance. And it's been very hard to find, and I've had some the last few years have been a lot of roller coasters, meaning I've had a lot of highs and a lot of lows, and we've been through a lot, and I think at the end of it, where I feel like I found that joy is slowing down and finding balance of Jesus, family, work, and not always feeling like I have to go or do or
Mm.
have all these things, but kind of slowing down and maybe even being a little quiet and getting joy from those things, but not let those things dictate my joy either, if that makes sense. I think that's a really hard question.
It is, and what's been fun is I've done about 80 episodes now, and everybody's definition is just a little different, but I've yet to have somebody that didn't say you have to work for it. It doesn't just happen, right? We don't just wake up happy every day and things are butterflies and bubbles. It's about just what you said, finding balance, but you have to work for that balance. It
Right.
doesn't just happen. And I also, it is so clear that Jesus is a big part of who you are. And all of our listeners might not understand that or agree with it. But when I know that that's authentic, is when it's just who somebody is and not what they say or how they act, right? Like we can all do a lot of things, but that is clearly a North Star for you. That is
Wow.
clearly a driving force. And what's neat for me to watch as an outsider looking in is that you're clear with your authentic self. And I think that that takes years of practice. And it also takes enough confidence that says, I'm gonna be unapologetically me because I don't know how to be anybody else. So good
Right.
on you for
Thank you.
recognizing that that's who you need to be.
Thanks. That means a
Okay,
lot.
so Charlie and Ryan are not in need of pacifiers and teethers anymore.
Definitely
And
not.
so why don't you tell us how do you transition when your whole world was kind of to solve their problems and that became your job, that became your not just your mom job, but your actual like income paying job? Not that you had to give up what you were doing, but how has that transitioned as the kids got older?
I think if you kind of step back a little bit more, I have actually stepped away from as much of the work that I was doing before. In the beginning, you're doing it all. You're doing the videos and the Instagram and the creating and the shipping. And as you grow, you get staff. And I think even the last few years, even probably 2 years ago, I was still doing all of Instagram and I was still doing all the videos and all of that. And I was really kind of getting burned out and just feeling a little lost, like, God, what do you want me to do? Like, what's wrong? I think there was some depression in there a little bit that I had to work through, but I've kind of shifted my role. And so the last, I guess, year and a half, I've been home and working from home. And so that's been very, very new. And so I've been able to shift a lot of roles that I had before to people who are like really great at it. We have some awesome team members. And so that's kind of shifted a lot of the responsibilities off of me and allowed me to focus on the things that I love. And back to that question is some of the things what I love is creating. So I'm still creating the products, I'm still inventing. We have a lot of new stuff that we're working on, mostly even more focusing on Jesus and how to be disciples and to share him with others. But yeah, and the thing I think what I've learned of kind of with our business, I've never like, don't really try to look for things to create. They just kind of happen out of, like you said earlier, about solving problems, like the cutie dose with medicine, the cutie handle with, having something to hook her water bottle to her backpack. Um, so it's kind of not a forced thing, but just trying to solve those problems. And that's kind of where it goes with the things that we're creating now.
Well, and I heard actually two very important things. One is to recognize that you do not have to be good at everything. You have to find people who are good at
Right.
everything and you need to leverage their talents. We quit things that aren't fun. My definition of fun is that you feel valued and appreciated, that you have a voice and you're allowed to use it, and that your talents are leveraged for the greater good. You've made it fun to work for you because you're letting people be in their lane, right? You're in the social media lane because you're really good at that. Please go make that awesome. You're in
Right.
the actual development of the product itself. Once I have the idea and I have, cut the thing off and made the thing, now
Yeah.
make it so that it can be replicable.
Right.
That is a superpower, in my opinion, because you recognized, okay, I don't have to build it anymore. I need people to do that. So to me, that's a huge leadership lesson is find the people who are really good at the things and then trust them with your brand to be really good
Right.
at things. That's great. And then the other is recognizing that you also have a superpower and a lane. And as the leader of this organization, you need to keep being innovative and do the things over here now that you've freed yourself up with some time. And I think there are an awful lot of leaders listening who either have done that really, really well and are soaring, or haven't figured that out yet and are struggling, right? And so for those of you listening, if you
Mhm.
are in that second category and you are in on the struggle bus a little with the whole I don't know how to get past this thing, chances
Right.
are good it shouldn't be on your to-do list. It should
Right.
probably be on somebody else's. So thank you for that very valuable reminder that we don't have to be good at everything. right?
Yeah, and that was the hard transition to give things up, like, having control issues, but it's like looking on this side of it, it's like, "Oh my gosh, praise God," like, I'm so much happier, like, there's a lot more joy in it because you were able to give up that control and figuring out what you're best at.
Well, and it's kind of like taking you back to your teaching days on the day that you got cursed out, your car got keyed and you were just done, right?
Mhm.
Is recognizing my talents are not needed here anymore. They might be
Right,
needed, but
right,
I can't keep giving in that space. And it
right,
makes me sad because as an educator myself, I want the best teachers in the world in every classroom. But there's also a moment at which you can't be a great teacher anymore because you can't give of your best self, right? That's not what's coming out. So
right.
I think there are about 946 leadership lessons that you have dropped thus far. And that's pretty impressive because we've not been talking that long.
Yeah.
And I think, Lindsay, what I appreciate about you is that you're willing to share your story, right? You're not hiding it. You're not saying this has been butterflies and bubbles from the beginning. Now that's the second time I've used that reference. So clearly it's not a butterflies and bubbles thing. But you've also had to go through some stuff to get to where you are so that you appreciate where you are. So what's the number one thing you're trying to teach your daughters through this process?
I think just to work hard through anything. That one, nothing's gonna be given to you, but you're gonna have highs and lows, and through that, I think if you work hard and you are focused on Jesus and letting him guide you, then I think you will be successful as long as you're doing his will. So, I think, you know, always working and following what God tells you to do.
I love it, and I'm sure that they're seeing you walk that every single day. And then you said your husband works with you too, which is pretty unique. So the 2 of you are, I'm guessing, have different gifts and you have different roles within the organization. What's his role within your organization?
So, he is the CEO, and he handles all the stuff that I am horrible at. I'm creative, and he is like um, incredible at business and ordering and money and numbers and all of that. And you can definitely see why God put us together because, like, just have being that perfect team, and we balance each other out so beautifully.
Well, because if it were up to you, you'd have a whole lot of really pretty ribbons to make things out of and nothing to make with them, right? Like,
Yes.
so that limiting factor thing might not come into play. Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So,
Well, good on you again for recognizing talents. And I think that's my biggest takeaway so far is that you
Penny.
recognize people's talents. Is that Penny? Is Penny
That's
making
Penny.
her
Yeah.
presence known? I thought.
Hold on. Sorry.
Okay, so I am pretty sure, Lindsay, that I could talk to you for days and learn all kinds of things. And I'm hopeful that this friendship will be able to continue. But I also know that people have a short attention span. So they're only going to hang with us for about 30 minutes. So I do have some rapid fire questions for you. But before I ask my rapid fire questions, I want to make sure that people can find you. So I know you mentioned Instagram and Facebook. If I am a mom who's looking for some support, or I need to buy a gift for a new mother, or I need to figure out this whole family thing, how might somebody find you?
Sure. So you can go to our website, ryanandrose.co. So ryanandrose.co, not .com. And we're also, on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, search Ryan and Rose. And then on Facebook, we have the Ryan and Rose account, but also a group called the Ryan and Rose Cutie Community.
And does Cutie stand for something, or is Cutie just the adorable name that you came up with a long time ago? Is it an acronym?
No, it just basically we started with the cutie clip because we could attach it to more than pacifiers. We didn't want to really call it a pacifier clip because you could attach it to toys and teethers. And then it kind of just stuck. So then we were like cutie teethers and cutie pat and kind of stayed with this.
So cute. Well, cutie it's perfect, and everything that I looked at is darn cute. And
Oh,
again, I'm sad that my children are too old. However, I am sure at some point I will be a grandma, which I'm not ready for yet. Jackson Cassidy, hear me say that out loud. Chloe, you too. But when that happens, I will know where I'll be going. That's exciting. So my son is engaged. They're getting married in July, and then our daughter is buying a house and doing other things. But yeah, they're at that age, and I don't know how I got to be that age because I'm still 23 and just starting out. But clearly,
yeah.
yes, we are. Okay, so here are my rapid fire questions for you. Are you ready? Are you
Yes.
excited? Okay. Question number one: what is your definition of fun?
I love to chill I
Love
think our
it.
life is so busy that sometimes I just want to sit and watch FBI or I don't know. We also love to ride as a family. So we have some land and so riding four wheelers. And my husband, he does the Banshee channel. So we're always riding something four wheelers, ATV, side by sides. That's probably our favorite thing to do.
And what state are you in? I missed that part.
We're in Tennessee.
In Tennessee. Okay, I'm in Florida. So, all
Yeah.
right. Well, in Tennessee, you've got a little more land around you than we do here in Florida, and that's awesome. So fun. I grew up riding four wheelers too, so that's good stuff. Okay, how do you know that you're showing up as your authentic self?
Hmm. I think like no regret, like with things that you say or things that you do, knowing that you're being honest and in your day to day.
Yeah. I appreciate the word honest, and that's the vibe you give off for sure is that you're going to get me and this is who I am. So, let me be me. I think that's great. Okay, how do you channel your best self on your worst days?
For me, it's definitely like when I notice that I'm having a bad day or I'm like things aren't going my way, I have to stop and get in the Bible. I know it kind of say it sounds crazy or cliche or whatever, but like that's what helps me kind of redirect and be like, slow down, give it to God. It's going to be okay and kind of restart. I think that's what I've learned works the best for me and helps me kind of regroup myself.
Yeah. Well, and I hear the word recenter, right? Like you just have to know you know your true north. And so you're going to come back to it and make sure that you are looking in the right direction and not getting all twisted around, right?
Right.
Okay. So, truth be known, people will only really remember one major thing that you said today. So, if they only get one nugget of wisdom from you, Lindsay, what would you like that nugget of wisdom to be? What do you want people to remember?
I think that focusing on the Lord, it's changed my life, and I know it can change others' lives. And just knowing that you can see my life, I thought I was going this way, and God's like, nope, I want you over here because I have something bigger and better for you. So I think for me, it's, having a relationship with God and giving your life to Him because you don't know what's best, but he does. And when you do focus on him, your life is just so much better and you get that joy that people are looking for because you can't get that joy from, I don't think you can get that joy and happiness from anything else. You can't get it from money. You can't get it from success or people. People are going to let you down, but God is the only true thing that won't let you down and also gives you joy and makes you happy.
Love it. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your faith. Thank you for sharing your successes and your failures, right? Your moments, your humanness. And I know you could have been doing about 85 other things right now. And Penny would like to go for a walk, but
She read.
but I appreciate you choosing to spend this time with our Productive Joy listeners because I know they're going to walk away with something really special because you chose to share. So, for all of those Productive Joy listeners, thank you for spending time with Lindsay and with me and with Productive Joy. Please find her on all social media platforms and get her stuff. It's really great stuff, especially if you have those age kiddos that need that kind of thing. And be a part of her community too, as well. And I want to thank you for always coming and faithfully being here. Make sure that you're sharing this podcast because that's the only way people will know it exists. And as always, your challenge today and every day is to figure out a way to turn fun into action.